Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi and welcome to Midweek Magic, where I want you to grow your collection by winning 2 free Rare or Better ICRs each and every week. This week's Midweek Magic is none other than only Murders at Karlov Manor, thus named because you have to build a 60 card deck using only cards from Murders. And it doesn't matter whether you are following the plan at the beginning of the season, or maybe you found this video as a person who has come to Arena mid-season or even post-Murder season. We are going to help you turn your small collection of Murders of Karlov Manor into a fun deck to play. But before we get into all of that, this whole Midweek Magic thing has become a bit of a tradition here at the Stronghold, and it all started with our crack team of researchers discovering that we were the only YouTube channel making consistent, proactive, and timely Midweek Magic coverage. And here we are years later, and it appears that we're still the only ones out there doing it for the budget community. So be sure to subscribe to the Planeswalker Stronghold so that we can be here for you every chance we get. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Alright, so this only event can, well, be a bit of murder on someone who is trying to follow the plan, in which I suggest that you don't open your packs until you have finished your first month's worth of drafting of a new set. And the way they schedule it, the event occurs before quick drafting even becomes available for us free-to-play players. So that leaves you with 2 real viable options for these only events. The first being to use one of your premium draft tokens to do an inexpensive draft and then align that with a similarly aligned jump-in pack to get you to a 36 card deck. The other, of course, is to pick up 3 similarly aligned jump-in packs and reach that 36 card deck that way. This set in particular is a bit of a murder once again because the 10 primary jump-in packs are all 2 color, so getting 3 to line up without any sort of repetition is going to be murder. Yes, I'm going to keep making that pun. More so, it's not a lot of onboard fixing available for these jump-in packs, making that 3 color or those 3 jump-in packs across 3 colors even more difficult to play. But don't worry, we've got 3 viable options for you. The first of those options to consider is going Rakdos, because you see, no matter what your situation is on Arena right now, everyone has 3 copies of Shock and 3 copies of Murder in their collection, thanks to their starter decks. So by adding these to whatever draft jump-in pile you've been able to accumulate in your early collection days of Murders at Karlov Manor, adding these 6 cards will tend to very seriously elevate it. Adding removal to a small collection typically elevates all of the remaining creatures in your deck, because now your potentially mediocre creatures only have to measure up against your opponent's second best creatures, because you use the removal to eliminate their best items on the board. It also doesn't hurt that Rakdos happens to be one of my top 3 draft recommended archetypes for budget players this season. And of course, it doesn't hurt anything that the Rakdos jump-in pack from Murders at Karlov Manor is pretty good in its own right, featuring the Case of the Stash Skeleton, 7 pretty passable creatures, decent removal and combat tricks, and the artifact Lead Pipe Clue to help make your creatures a little bit better and help you draw out of those difficult situations. And just in case you hadn't heard, the case of the Stash skeleton has been solved. That body is none other than the Cult Guild Mage from Ravnica Allegiance, and you can tell by the signature Jace the Mind Sculptor puppet appearing in both arts. Now, even with all those advantages going Rakdos' way, don't be surprised if you still find yourself a card or two short of having a solid deck. But don't worry, there's a couple uncommons that might be worth one or two wild cards to help smooth it and fill it out. Of course, putting a wild card into a presumably second copy of Runebrand Juggler would be a nice addition. Also, push and pull gives you not only some removal in its own right, and we talked earlier about the importance of removal, allowing your creatures to face up better by destroying aggressively your opponent's best creatures, then using pull to pull those creatures out of your opponent's graveyard and hopefully use them for a single turn to win the game. Beyond that, Leering Onlooker is some pretty nice card advantage going on. Clandestine Meddler and Frantic Scapegoat both fit that suspected sub-archetype going on. Case of the Burning Mask is even more removal, as is Long Goodbye, both serious considerations. And of course, you might also want to consider Concealed Weapon. To be honest, this card has multiple modes here, and none of them are particularly good. By playing it as a disguised creature, you can effectively add a 2/2 creature to your deck that when he flips, it becomes a little bit of a combat trick, giving a +3 bonus to whatever creature you attach it to as it flips. And of course, you can also do some combat tricks there by declaring it as a blocker, then removing it from combat by flipping it over into an equipment, and maybe winning another combat with that combat trick. And of course, even after that, it hangs around as an equipment that you can attach to some of those maybe mid-range creatures to help you more effectively win additional combats. A lot of morph options within this set, and if you are looking to fill out a few more cards and don't want to invest more wild cards, don't forget you can take off-color morph creatures and add them to any of the decks that we're talking about today. Just knowing that you can only play them as the face-down disguised 2/2 Ward 2 creature, which isn't too bad for 3 mana on a marginal trying to get their deck. And just know that you won't be able to flip those. But your opponent doesn't know that you can't flip your morph creature, so it might give you some advantages in combat, particularly if you have cards in hand and or are presenting 5 untapped mana to potentially flip over a substantial morph threat. And of course, morph leads us into our second budget deck option for Murder the Karlov Manor and those with small collections. When it comes to the disguise mechanic, you've got a couple of really good options. The red-green disguised jump-in pack, as well as the white-green undercover, both focus on this mechanic and utilize it in different ways. The white-red battalion pack doesn't specifically focus on disguise as a mechanic, but color-wise is the perfect companion to round out this trio if you're trying to go the all jump-in route. Of course, either the red-green or white-green could also be a focus of a draft. The red-green was one of my top 3 recommendations, and the white-green and white-red were both part of my tier 2 backup options. This option, of course, can also make good use of something like those shocks that are already in your collection, as well as the various disguise morphish style creatures that are available within the set that might be off-color options. And if I were going a 3-color route here as described, I would probably lean towards the red and the green and have white more as a secondary splash color. If you still find yourself a couple cards short, of course we talked a little bit at length about Concealed Weapon, still a very good option. And of course, Green Belt Radical is another really good disguise creature that might fit very nicely into a deck like this, giving you a bit of a overrun, pump the team, trample sort of thing. And of course, 10th Street Gossip is the red-green signpost uncommon for the disguise deck. Adding an initial or possibly second copy of that to the deck will go a long way if you have red as one of your primary colors. This morph style deck, particularly with the red-green, has, I think, the most potential to go and branch you into the Eternal formats by combining blue teamer cards from the Khans of Tarkir set that was released in December. I'm not saying this deck will necessarily be competitive, but it will be very approachable from a budget perspective and a lot of fun to play, so that may be something to keep in mind. But that's a topic for a later video. And finally, the third option that I wanted to present on this, and admittedly the most harebrained of the three, is to lean on Slime Against Humanity. This is a common that you can have as many copies of as you want in your deck, and each creature that it generates gets stronger based on the fact that you have previously done this, whether the card as a sorcery ends up in the graveyard or in exile. The nice thing here is this deck can be as simple as putting 36 copies of Slime Against Humanity and 24 basic forests, slapping it together and calling it a deck. And it might actually get the job done, particularly in a only Murders at Karlov Manor sort of environment. Like I said, it's a bit of a harebrained idea, but it is something that you can do for 4 common wild cards if you don't have a single copy of this in your collection yet. Unlike the other 2 deck options that we have discussed so far, the slimes are not what I would call a recommended draft archetype. Let's face it, the odds of a critical mass of this card being opened in a single draft pod is pretty low. Not to mention, what are the odds that they would all end up in your hands? That having been said, Slime is a fully supported jump-in archetype. The mono green deck opens itself up with 9 copies of Slime Against Humanity and a few very poignant removal, combat trick sort of things with hard-hitting question and getting a leg up, proving that you don't really need a lot added to your deck to make the slimes work. If I was doing this, I would look very hard at the rare dual land that you receive. With any luck, you get the red or black dual land that would allow you to splash in those murders or shocks, as well as any other red/black cards that you happen to have in your collection for the set. The white or blue version as well can just as easily be combined, but without the added benefit of those guaranteed cards. If you find yourself in the position where you want to invest a couple wild cards into this deck, and I'm not saying you should, but adding additional copies of Hard-Hitting Question or Get a Leg Up is a pretty sure way of doing it if you feel like you're coming up a little bit short. But with the ability to just add more copies of Slime Against Humanity, I don't think this is a position that you're very likely to find yourself. So there you go, guys. 3 tools to help you build fun-to-play decks with a very small collection of Murders at Karlov Manor. And hey, just in case you didn't catch all that, Matt would like you to know that the deck list that we discussed in this video is going to have a link down in the doobly-doo to take you over to Aetherhub, along with a link to any other alternative lists that you might wish to consider. He only asked that you give it a little thumbs up when you're over there checking out the deck list. And I plan on live playing this event on Wednesday at 11 a.m. over on my Twitch channel. So definitely stop in and check it out. Because the Stronghold is so much more than just a YouTube channel, and you can find links to all of our other social media outlets in our profile. Because at the end of the day, we're all budget players. And as a community, we're stronger together. So like, comment, subscribe, follow, do all those things to show a little love. It's appreciated more than you know.